Hello and welcome everybody to a special edition of the Faceoff. I almost called it the Faceoff interview series, but it's not actually. This is a different, I don't know if we call it limited series. I don't know what the term for this would be, but we're going to do something a little bit different today than we've done pretty much ever. For those who are around a long time ago, the Faceoff started as a kind of weekly podcast looking at the different leagues that were going on. And then we started doing an interview series for, well, at the time, somewhat shorter form interviews, kind of turned into longer form interviews here. So we've now breached, I think, the 4 hour mark for one of them. But this is a new, completely different, much shorter form content where we're going to be taking a look at some of the hotter takes that, in particular, my co-host here, Tony Flo, has. We're going to call this tentatively. We'll call it Tony's Tangents, which we're a fan of the name right now. But up to some debate, maybe we'll find something new for it in the future. But yeah, the main idea for this is Tony will come to the table and present a hot take that he has and kind of present his stance on that. And what we're really looking for is feedback and comments from the community to kind of drive this discussion forward. So feel free to, I'll post this in the HQM Discord, so leave any comments there or leave comments on YouTube for us to take a look at. And when we do our next one of these in the future, we'll also take a look at some of the comments that you guys left here for this one and give Tony an opportunity to address some of those as well. So that's kind of our outlined plan for now. We're giving it a little test run, to use an old icy meme, a little test run here to see how it goes. And we'll a really old one. And we'll see if you guys like it. And if not, obviously we'll pivot, find something new, a little more entertaining to do. But with that, I will turn it over to you, Tony, for the very first, the inaugural Tony's Tangents. This one on player perceptions.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, as Dial mentioned, most of this I'd like to hear back from this. It's all my opinion, and I'm going to state it like I'm right, but maybe I'm not. Maybe I am. I don't know. I don't. It doesn't really matter. I don't really care if I'm right or wrong. But yeah, the first topic that we decided to start with is one that I think player reputation skewers people's general opinions of a player's talent. And this was kind of spurred on doing the interview series. One of the favorite parts for everybody listening and doing it even is the underrated and overrated player question, and we get some interesting answers there sometimes. But I feel like it all comes down to the same thing. Discussions of player talent, where for most people in the community, players are either good or shit, and there's no nuance or in between in like player talent based on just how we perceive players. And I think that's not really fair. And I want to give a couple examples of this for one way or the other. And I brought this one up. I'll start with this one. Is specifically, I think Leafs is underrated and more importantly underutilized by a lot of people. Where he gets a bad rap. He did, I think, in the Quacky one and Kiwi interview, where it's just like, oh yeah, Leafs is bad. It's like, no, he's not. Like he's not bad. Like you can't reasonably call him bad based on the player pool. Like looking at it, maybe he'd be insulted by it. My opinion, maybe not. But I think he's a mid-level player, an offensive player, and he can be really effective when his team's using him right. And but a lot of people brush him off, like, oh, he's bad. He doesn't pass as fast as I want, or he turns the puck over. But like I think he's objectively better than half of the players who play the game, but the perception on him is just no. He sucks because he turns it over. Like I don't know. It's very odd. And another one, similar player to Leafs, who I think was even a little more. I don't know, bad mouthed a little. Just another underrated guy. I think
Unfairly
in terms
criticized,
of
maybe.
unfair. A lot of the criticisms maybe of the play style are fair, but it's I think the criticism of the player's general ability aren't, and that's Owl, who again he's another effective middle ground player in the leagues or in the community. Sorry, just the general pool of players, and his play style and honestly his reputation from over 5 years ago when he was playing nonstop when he found the game and he was always on Pub Stars. uh, where he, I think objectively for a long time was not very good, and he's frustrating to play with. But since then, he's improved a lot, like significantly improved. And again, at the worst, he's in the middle of the pack of all the players. So, to call him bad, I think is like you can't reasonably call Owl bad. He's not. Like he's not a bad player. He's got enough ability to be an impact player too, which is the game is lacking that, especially on the defensive end. But like I don't know, he might lack in a sort of higher end creativity and decision making. He doesn't always make the pass, but like making the mistakes that he does, like it doesn't make him terrible. It means he makes mistakes. It means he's not as good as Juice or Quacky, which doesn't make you bad. So I don't know. With him, it's very like I absolutely see the criticism people have. Like, and I have criticism like playing with him, but like what are we expecting here? we force him. Players like Owl, he plays D every game. He's in charge of breaking the puck out, and then we get mad at him when he tries to do things with the puck. I don't know. It's not fair. Like I think it's not fair the way we kind of shit on players, and I'm guilty of it too. Like I'm absolutely like you could kind of look at me like, oh yeah, Tony, you're the one, like you're defending these guys. Like I get madder than anybody playing, but like I think mad in the moment of the game. Thinking about it after, it's like, well, that's not fair. It's not fair of me to be mad at a player who's trying to do something instead of just dumping it worthlessly or whatever, like I might do. So anyway, the main topic of these two guys, though, is that mid-level players, I think, get way, way more hate than they deserve, just because people expect them to be better. I think because they're in this middle of the pack, they have a good bit of ability. We expect them to use it better, but I don't really think that's fair to expect everybody to do uh, the right thing every single time with the puck, which is where most of these criticisms of these two players come from. And yeah, with a with another example of a much higher end player, not talking about somebody who makes mistakes, because this is a player who doesn't, and I might get some flack about even choosing him to say he's a little underrated or lump him in with the other two guys I brought up, but this extremely high end player, I don't think gets the credit he deserves, is Juice. And this is more about, again, player reputation going into our perception of how good somebody is. And Juice is a guy who gets criticized from what I've heard, my experience. Like we were talking about the Quack interview too, about league play versus pub play and talent versus maybe the ability to apply it in a high end setting, high end in quotes. Because some of these leagues, not the one currently seems pretty high end with 4 teams, but a lot of the leagues people talk about are I wouldn't consider very high end leagues. But yeah, Juice gets a bad rap, as I'm alluding to, for not being as good in leagues as he is in pubs. But we don't apply that same logic to a lot of other players. Like Quacky is one, which he brought up, so I hope he wouldn't be too mad at me bringing that. But he's a guy who plays significantly worse in leagues than he does in pubs. He's the best pub player around. He wins almost every pub. He dominates. He gets 4 points a game in ranked pubs. Like he's crazy. It's like he's objectively worse in leagues, but we don't criticize him. We don't say, well, for that reason he's not the one of the best in the game. Like, but we do with Juice sometimes, where it's like, yeah, Juice, but not in the leagues. Guy's another player who he's very good in pubs, and he's not as strong in the leagues. It's just the way it is. But again, these two guys I think are probably they're generally fairly rated, where they're like they're held to a very high standard, high esteem in player ability, and I think that's fair. But with Juice, it's just an odd thing where I think because he doesn't always sign up. He didn't sign up for LHL a few times. That we kind of look at him as not as good, but like night in and night out, he's the best player. He's among the best in the whole game. And he, in ranked especially, or in pubs, I should say, he's the best player in his team. And he usually has a really poor quality of teammate just because of how the ranked pub system works. And I'm not trying to say, I was talking about Quacky dominating it and maybe Juice not being as good as Quacky. I'm not trying to say Juice is better than Quacky even. I'm just saying Juice is such a high end player, one of the best in the game every single night. And I think league or otherwise, if we want to actually talk about the leagues, like the leagues he's played in, like look at some of the rosters of team, not the one he's on right now. He's on a very good team right now, but the quality of teammates this guy has had to deal with in some of the leagues he's played is insane. Like he's on what would be, I think, the worst team in the league if it wasn't for him, almost every time. And it's just we use that like people. I say we, I don't, but people use that against him to say like, oh, he's not winning. But we play Canada versus USA, and he's the best player on the ice. Like watch that back. Like really watch that back, and watch who the best player is, because it's Juice. It's absolutely Juice. You can just see it. Like you can see how good he is. And so consistent. And so that was a really high stakes, high skill game. But like, so that doesn't count though. Like it doesn't count that he was the best in it. He was great against the best players in the game. He looked better than his peers. I mean, it's one night. Maybe it is unfair to even throw that in, but I don't know. To me, it's just a perception of him. Maybe he's not on enough. Maybe he's not on Discord enough talking to people. Like I think maybe if he was on all the time, then people would kind of come around on him and to see like, oh yeah, he's great. But
Do you
because
think
he's
do you think his refusal to sign up for leagues a lot of the time plays into that
yeah,
as well?
yeah, I do. And like maybe that is maybe a criticism of Juice that I've had. Like I wish he would play leagues more, and sometimes I don't like his mentality towards the leagues. But that's has, in my opinion, it should have nothing to do with how we evaluate his level of play. And yeah, as fair a criticism as it is, maybe maybe it's more an attack on Juice's character, and not really fair to make in the context of just talking player ability. But yeah, I guess that's fair to make it. Like I assume that's why. I assume that's a main perception people have of Juice of, oh, he doesn't sign up, and he doesn't win. He doesn't win these leagues, which there hasn't really been a very high end league that we were all playing towards. We all spent years building up to and playing towards since season 19, 5 years ago, which he did play in, and he wasn't as good back then. So that's not even what I'm referring to. Which I mean, not really to knock. I think the LHL, when we brought it back, they were fairly high end seasons, 16 leagues, pretty good, but it's not really the same. And him not playing in those hurts the league quality, hurts maybe his perception. Actually, talking about that, and I'll get into somebody who I think has the opposite perception of Juice, even though he's compared to him a lot. And uh, I'm interested to see if he hears this, if he's upset by this, because I am gonna kind of say an overrated one here that is probably gonna upset buddies of his, which again I think goes into players' reputation, factoring into our perception of how good they are, is Paco, who's one of my favorites. He's I like him a lot too, and I think he's great, and I think he's the fifth best player in the whole game. And I don't say he's a top five player. I number it. I think he's firmly the fifth best. Uh, and I don't think he compares with Juice. I think his play style is similar, but I think he's worse than Juice. I think he's nowhere near him defensively, not as good a passer, doesn't receive as well. Like every tangible thing, he's just not as good as Juice. He's
Would you
not
just
as
would
good
you call him like
utility
just a
wise.
budget juice then?
Oh, what Juice? Sorry.
Like a budget juice?
See, yeah, but I hope I hope I'm not insulting him when I say this, because again, he is great. He is an elite player. He's high end. I think the drop between, I call him the fifth best. I think the drop between 5 and 6 is a lot more significant than say 4 and 5. Like he is up there. He's up there in the elite of the game. But I think he's the worst of these really good dynamic carrying players. And he gets the perception that he's compared to Quacky and he's compared to Otto and he's compared to Juice, but I think he's clearly not as good as those three players specifically. And the fourth one, if you want me to name it, would be Meat Sale. I think Meat Sale's super just all around amazing, especially when you factor in his goalie ability, which I admittedly haven't in the past. Uh, yeah, he's dominant as they come. And I'm not trying to rank the other guys 1 through 4, but I think those four guys are just way bigger impact players at the end of the day than Paco, who's extremely, extremely good, and he's capable of, I think, going a little above and beyond. But just, I, yeah, I wouldn't compare him to those other guys. And I think honestly, he gets compared because he's buddies with so many players. Like he's a really good guy. We all like him, but like I think the reality of it is, when he moved and his ping got higher, he was not as good, and he's never quite gotten back to the level that I think people still imagine he is. Which,
If he was still
like it.
playing with the Toronto Ping,
Oh yeah,
would you
and
change
again,
your perspective?
this is not a fair argument to talk about right now. Paco with his higher ping, because I think if he was in Toronto, there's a really good chance he is a top 3 player, top 2 player. Like he was that good, but he's just not. I don't know what it. And maybe it's not all ping. It's just maybe it's other players. It's play style. I don't know what it is, but yeah, this is a guy who just has a reputation of getting compared with these other players that I just don't think he quite compares to. And I think, maybe if he doesn't win in season 20, I don't think we look at him at that level. Like 3 years ago, he won an LHL season, and we're saying, yeah, he's better than Juice. Not that, again, people are specifically saying that, but that tends to be the feeling I get, talking to people about player level,
Well, and
and it's
again,
just
devil's
odd.
advocate here too, right? So I guess two questions there, follow up based on what you said. First and foremost, Juice has not won an LHL Cup,
Nope.
and people still say he's better than that. So what I'm interested in, is, well, better than Paco, right? What I'm interested in is, do you think it like, do you think Paco winning a cup made or inflated his reputation, or do you think that his performance while winning that cup, because it was a
Yeah,
dominant performance by him. He was very good.
he was great. Like he outplayed Otto in those finals. Like that's I'm not trying to take anything away from that version of Paco.
Right. So I
I'm
guess
just
what I'm
saying,
saying is that if he doesn't win the cup but still plays
yeah,
that well in a losing effort to Otto, because Otto's the best of all time and it just can't beat him. Like if that in that circumstance, is your opinion different, or do you think anyone else's opinion is different?
my opinion is not different. I don't place the value in the winning. I would place it in performance. If he performed that well, he should deserve he deserves the credit for playing as well as he did, win or lose. But I'm saying the perception of people are, well, he beat Otto 3 years ago. He beat Otto on low ping, and then he moved, and now he has high ping, and he's not as good anymore. And it's generally, I think, accepted. But then he's still compared up there. And we'll throw a line out. This is not mine, and I'm not going to say whose it is, but uh, uh, once playing with Paco, this person said that Paco is the worst great player. Like he's just clear. He's the worst great player. Of all the good players you get on your team, he is the worst one. And it's not, again, sort of my opinion. I wouldn't phrase it quite like that. But again, I think he's the 5th best player in the game. And I think he's absolutely capable of carrying teams. And I think you could win with him as your number one guy. All of these things, he can play if if he's on the right team, he can play. He can hang with Otto, Quacky, Juice. Like he can hang with all these guys. But like again, you just stack them up, comparing him to Juice. The perception of Paco and Juice are wildly different to me based on the fact that I just clearly see Juice as better, just objectively a better player than him. But he gets the credit. And I think that honestly has a lot to do with perception, whether it's because he's friends with so many people, he's always on, he's talking, he's playing games. Again, he's a really good guy and he's really good at the game. It's really not it's not that hard to understand why somebody I think would have the perception of them that they do. But I just think if Juice was always on, if he was on and talking as much as Paco did, people would be a lot quicker to acknowledge how great Juice is versus I think a contemporary of his, Paco.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll in the interest of time, we'll wrap it up here. But again, would love to hear, feedback on this style of
Really, just tell
content.
me how I'm an idiot too,
Yeah,
like
do
how
that. Yeah,
stupid I am.
if you want to rip into Tony or me, happy to address that. We would love that. So, and any feedback you have on the format or any of the content itself, like I said, hit us up in Discord, leave us a message on the YouTube video, and we will get to it in the next one of these videos that we do. But
Can I have can I have one more? Just
oh
by
yeah,
the
yeah,
way,
closing
when we get
statement.
the
Closing
comments, it's
statement.
important. It's important. And we do want comments. I do want discussion. I want pushback. Even I want people to tell me why I'm wrong. But do remember when you do that, I understand I'm not as good as Paco, and I'm shit, and I don't compare to him. I don't. It's not about me. It's about player perception and how we view these people and versus how we think of them as players and how we evaluate talent in general.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Tony, and we will see everybody next time for either our next interview series or next one of these, whichever comes out
Yeah,
first.
we got a few more of these in the tank.
Oh
A few
yeah.
more hot takes.
Oh yeah. All right. Bye everyone.